And it doesn't take that long if you have just a home garden to get something going and to get it back to life. And, you know, not poisoning is a big help because the earthworms will move in and the bacterial soil will move in. But, you know, clay soil is a nuisance when it sticks to your foot, but it's really good soil.
And that's a very, very good point, and we can certainly make it better with some of the things that everybody's just talked about. I was going to go to you with the next question, but instead I'm going to back up for just a minute here and go one further, and I'll ask who wants to take this question, but when and how do we add dry molasses to an organic vegetable garden, and to which vegetables can we add it, and how often can we add it? Who wants to talk about dry molasses? Okay, Bruce, you haven't said much yet, and that's very unusual for you, so start out talking about dry molasses, and the rest of us will chime in. And by the way, dry molasses is molasses that has been soaked onto pieces of soybean or corn cob or whatever else. Dry molasses is not crystalline molasses that will dissolve when you put it into water. Ask the guy that sold me a $2,000 sprayer and should have known better to pull behind a tractor, and then he went out in his own sprayer, dumped 2 bags of dry molasses in, and I just laughed because it took him 3 days to clean those heads out. He clogged it up so badly. So, Bruce, tell us a little bit about dry molasses and how you use it.
Bob. Sucker. First of all, dry molasses is a mixture of organic material. They use rice hulls or wheat whey or whatever. They put molasses on it to dehydrate it. Now, what do we have here? We have an energy source. And I got to admit, even my friend Howard Garrett's not here, his sales pitch to me was, we've got an energy source that also has some structure, some roughage with it. I prefer myself to use a lot of liquid molasses because then I get more bang for the buck. But what dry molasses has the ability to do is mix in with your soil and start what? Your microbes back to life. You know, if I have to give you one sentence that you've got to remember, and I learned this maybe originally from Bob Webster or Malcolm Beck, our job is, we are not vegetable growers. We're not grass growers. We're microbe farmers. And what molasses has the ability to do, dry and wet, is to bring that microbe back to life and to give it something to eat, something to live on. All of us, whether it's a plant, animal, or whatever, we need 2 things. We need a protein source and we need a carbon source. What we've done to our soil for years is we've taken mostly chemical nitrogen, ammonium nitrate, and each time we use that and we don't add these carbon sources in, what we do is we burn out a little bit. Then we burn out a little bit more. And then when the soil is no longer working right because the plant's not happy, you know what we did? We put in more nitrogen. We didn't go back and say, wait a minute, we need that balance of life between our proteins and our sugars, or our nitrogens and our carbons. And that's where we find out that both liquid and dry molasses have an advantage for us. It's inexpensive, it gives you back the carbon you need, and if it's good molasses, it also gives you a number of trace minerals. And so it does help your tilth of your soil build back up, which means the earthworms are coming. It holds water better. It is less likely to dry out. It's less likely to compact. So if I had to tell you a reason to use molasses dry or wet is that we have just starved our soils for the most part of carbon for so long that it's time to give it back. And if Bob does this again to me, I'm going to fuss at him. No. But anyway, no, I mean, I do think that is legitimate. I think that there is a very, very good reason, whether it's sugar of any kind, but in the case of dry molasses, probably still one of the best values you can get to enhance your soil, especially when it's been abused.
John, do you want to add anything to it?
Help me, John.
About dry molasses?
I thought that was covered pretty well. But the first time I heard about dry molasses was from the, I don't remember the gentleman's name, Malcolm might, is from the West Texas Organic Cotton Growers. And they, you know,
He's got the Boyd Lowry.
Okay, the Boyd Lowry. And so it was interesting to hear this for the first time because you can imagine 1,000 acres of organic cotton and what it might take to put a bagged fertilizer or some other fertilizer out there. And so he was getting that fertilizer for free. He was getting it from the air. He had a product called AgriGrow, and is it on the market anymore or just to farmers? Not in retail, you know. This is a wonderful product. I wish it was at retail again. But this was Azobacter, is that what it was? I think so, a nitrogen-fixing organism that didn't need to live on a legume. And so he would spray that out there, and then he'd feed them. He'd come back with the molasses. And this is the very first time I heard about somebody using molasses. And as you know, organic cotton is just wonderful. It's a wonderful product. And you don't have to use all the herbicides and chemicals to grow this product. And the most important thing is you're getting your nitrogen for free. And it comes right out of the air. There's a column of nitrogen all the way to the edge of space over each one of our gardens. And if you can harness that nitrogen into the soil, then this is a way to feed now. You put that molasses back out there. So this is the first time that I heard about that. And it's been many, many years. And it finally got down to the home gardener, and we began to learn about it, and sure enough, it did the same thing. It allowed us to use less nitrogen and fix it from the sky.
Stuart, you want to add, I know you're, as you mentioned, doing a lot with microbes. Where does molasses come into this picture, either in the home garden or in the 1,000-acre vegetable garden?
I think the question also involved how often could you do it and what kind of crops could you put on. You can use molasses on everything because they mentioned it's working on the soil. So yes, you can use it on any kind of vegetable, any kind of crop, any kind of yard. As far as timing, once a month would probably be adequate. You could use it more often if you really needed to push things fast. We're selling more molasses than I ever thought would be possible. About a 4,000-gallon tanker load about every 2 weeks. That's a lot of bottles to fill, a lot of volume. We have large farmers that are using large amounts. We have large farmers that will buy a tanker load of half Medina soil activator and half molasses already mixed because they don't have time to mix it fast enough to get it put out. But yes, molasses is making things work faster and it's economical.
You do? Go ahead, Tom.
My first experience with molasses, I was using it to stick on micronutrients to my fruit trees. And I noticed where it dripped on the ground, all the fire ants moved out from under the trees. But at that time I thought I wanted a vineyard, and I had some rows 500 feet long. I had just rootstock in there, and had a guy come out to graft all of those vines, graft some good grapes on them. And along that drip pipe, I had a 500-foot ant mound. And that guy came out and he said, "There's no way I can graft here. You got to get rid of them ants." I said, "Come back tomorrow at this time, it'll be gone." I took my pump-up sprayer, I put a bunch of molasses and water in it, and I just sprayed the drip pipe. That area, ants moved 5 feet in each direction. Fire ants cannot stand molasses because of the microbial activity that kicks up.
And one other thing, if you haven't discovered, and there's always a debate about whether it's really bad stuff or not, but nutgrass or nutsedge, as it should more properly be called, a lot of foolish people are buying a lot of toxic chemicals to try to kill nutsedge. Molasses is the greatest nutsedge killer in the world. It makes it rot away. You don't want to mix it too strong because that microbial activity that Malcolm just mentioned can be detrimental to a lot of different things. But you put somewhere between 1/4 and 1/2 cup of molasses to a gallon of water, go out and water your nutgrass with it real well, do the same thing in about 2 weeks. They're not going to just shrivel and turn brown. You're going to get the fun of watching them die like you can with fire ants and things like that. But all of a sudden you'll just notice that the nutgrass isn't there anymore. Best way on earth I know of to get rid of nutsedge. I will tell you to remember that some plants are a little more sensitive, and I'm not going to mention a friend of mine over in Seguin by name, but one of the fellows who harasses me constantly about organics and how they don't work and how it's such a waste of money, having breakfast with him not too long ago, and he says, that molasses will burn hibiscus if you make it too strong. And I said, "And how would you know about molasses?" He said, "Yeah, that molasses, it'll burn if you make it too strong, put it on hibiscus." So and I think this brings up one of the most important points for gardeners, whether you're hopefully organic or any other thing. Keep records, because you're going to find as you experiment, as you use different things, as you try different techniques in your garden, some of them are going to work really well and some of them may not work very well at all. And if your memory is as bad as mine is, then you're not going to remember which was good and which was bad. You're going to look and say, man, that's the best spinach I've ever grown. I wonder what I did. If you keep notes, you'll be able to keep up with that. It'll be a whole lot easier. I'm going to throw this question to Judy, who has a new book out on what to do with your herbs. And since she is quite an expert on herbs, this isn't necessarily on the use. But someone writes, the rosemary plants I bought last year and planted in pots are not doing much